We're live. We're finally live. Mike, it's Mind Your Banners postgame. Indiana 30, Oregon 20. You mocked my finely honed sense yesterday when I texted that I had a feeling I could not escape about this game. You also said I could not escape the feeling they were going to lose to Iowa, so at least I'm
you turned at Iowa at the start. You're like, they're losing. It's over. So, I mean, I don't think you get credit for – I mean, come on.
Batting 500 will still get you in the Hall of Fame, brother.
There you go.
Mike
You're
is
also
in
worried
Eugene.
He was worried about Michigan State last year, so he got that one wrong too. So.
I wasn't alone in that. And to be fair, Michigan State was up 10-0 at one point in that game, but we're not talking about Michigan State. We are talking about Indiana 30, Oregon 20. Quite possibly, Mike, the biggest win in program history, certainly in the regular season. I think there's obviously an argument for that Purdue game in 1967. I don't want to go big picture yet, but I want to just kind of plant it in your mind that maybe this one's more important because of where we are in college football right now. But I want to start by talking about this game. You were there, and so I will lean on you for a lot of the atmosphere, a lot of the post game, certainly. But the thing I can't escape when I think about this game, when I look at the numbers, certainly even watching it live, is that Oregon didn't lose this game. Indiana won it. Like, Indiana was the better team by almost any measure. They outgained Oregon through the air and on the ground. They were better on third downs. They ran more plays. They sacked Oregon. They sacked Dante Moore 6 times. They forced 2 turnovers. They doubled Oregon in tackles for loss. They were dominant for long stretches in the second half. On both sides of the football, they had the 3 longest drives of the game. I mean, like, Indiana was just plain and simple better than a team that was not supposed to be a team against whom this was not supposed to be possible in that environment, in that setting.
I guess I have a different view a little bit that
Sure.
In terms of the offense being dominant. I thought the offense did not look dominant, and Kurt Signetti agreed with me. He said basically that they had a lot of respect for this defense, what the defense was able to do, that they were out of rhythm. All the penalties were sort of adding up and kind of out of sorts, whether they were the noise or people yelling at me in the comments on social media about that. I said the noise affected them, but Oregon was trying to get them to jump with some well-timed movements, and I don't know how exaggerated it was, but it was causing issues. And, they had a couple nice drives, but I think they had as many bad moments as they had good. I thought what really just won the game essentially was the defensive effort that the pressure Dante Moore got. He looked pedestrian all game long. They basically just resorted to screens on the outside, hoping that their athletes would break something. Like they just stopped trying. At some point they just felt like they really could not get the ball downfield. And in desperation mode, they threw another pick. And I just thought that this was the call. Bryant Haynes, I think, was very open after that Notre Dame game, saying that he really regretted some of the calls he made and was kind of put the game on himself, that just didn't do a great job. This was his magnum opus in a sense. I mean, this is what it was, and this is what it culminated to. I mean, Mendoza made the plays when they needed to. They got the great drive, but I think all credit goes to this defense. That, to me, was the defining thing of this game.
Well, let's talk about the defense first. If I said the offense was dominant, I didn't necessarily mean like overall. What I meant was I think there were moments when, like, which offense exerted control in this game, basically. And
I
just thought
it was Indiana's defense that controlled the game. And
I mean, we can talk about this. I think you're really doing disservice to an offense that had 3 drives of 9 or more plays and 75 yards against Oregon's defense. Like, I don't disagree about Indiana's defense. I mean, like for context in this, Dante Moore had thrown 1 interception coming into this game. He threw 2 today. Oregon had allowed 1 sack all season. Indiana had 6 today. The tone was set immediately. Oregon gave up a sack on the first play of the game. Yes, I understand that. And I'm not disputing that. I was amused by all the Bryant Haynes, Pat Kuntz, oh no, we're so small. What are we going to do during the week?
I don't know who said that. I don't know where that came from.
Well, it came from their head coach. Their head coach was the one who said we're not as big as they are, and then one or two reporters looked at the average weights and said, yeah, Curt Cignetti's right, and then Bryant Haynes was like, oh no, we're so small, what are we gonna do?
He was just talking about the defensive line of Oregon. He wasn't saying Indiana was. I mean, I don't know, but yeah,
I understand that. But my point is, and I said this in my insider, the call was coming from inside the house. That's where it all started. The defense undeniably set the tone, and the defense, I think the credit you give the defense as much as anything else to me is if I'm going to give Indiana's offense credit for what I think it deserves credit for, which is in particular the 3 touchdown drives. And the fact that, if you look at the way they're spaced out, one in the first quarter, one in the third quarter, one in the fourth quarter, none of them are scripted. The stakes on each of those drives we can talk about. But I think the thing you give Indiana's defense credit for is Oregon just did not sustain drives in this game. And they only had 3 drives of 8 or more plays, and every one of those drives ended in a field goal. Oregon was, if you look at this, 7 plays, 3 plays, 3 plays, 12 plays, 4 plays, 11 plays, 4 plays, 8 plays, 6 plays, 2 plays, 1 play, 6 plays. Oregon was not sustaining anything. There were moments when Cignetti was certainly frustrated with, the run defense. And yes, they were getting gashed at times. And obviously I have no doubt he will bring up the sort of the safety issues again. What it looked like on that play on the replay as Amari Farrell maybe just got caught with his eyes in the backfield.
Because I don't know if you saw it in the broadcast. It was immediately clear. So they did it, I think, twice or 3 times. They went no huddle every time they kind of crossed midfield, and it was the play before they kind of switched up, and the safeties were not aligned right. They did not communicate the play. Boykin, as the ball was snapped, was pointing, jumping up and pointing at Farrell to because I don't think it got communicated to him that he had the responsibility for that guy, and so he was going the opposite direction, kind of fading to the sideline.
But he was looking. But if you look, he was looking in the backfield.
But I think that was because he thought his assignment was somebody else, and didn't know that, because that is exactly kind of what happened on those miscommunications earlier in the season. But we don't need to go. It didn't end up mattering, but that was the longest play, obviously, of the game for either team. But
the point is, Curt Cignetti's going to have teachable moments, whatever.
But
Oregon's offense was never in rhythm. There was never a moment when you thought Oregon's in control of this game, and that was not something that, even if you saw Indiana winning today, and I think we both said if Indiana wins, it could be the kind of game where both teams score some points, but the defense still makes a difference. But I don't know if you ever thought you would watch this game and feel like there was never a point when Oregon's offense was in control of the game, and there really wasn't.
And I think it would be interesting if the defensive line hadn't been so dominant. I just feel it would have been a different game, and Oregon would have been able to take advantage of some of those issues, because they keep popping up in the secondary. But it didn't matter, because man, was that front seven so dynamic. The linebackers had an excellent game, all 3 of them. Isaiah Jones keeps showing up. Just filling the stat chart and box score. And, look, Mario Landino and Tyreek Tucker got there right at the start. Like you said, kind of set the tone. It was just, like you said, the Oregon got shook. And then they kind of the play calling kind of in the second half. They didn't really take any chances and didn't really do anything. Like you said, they got a little bit going in the run game, but could never sort of find that balance, and could never do anything in the passing game other than, like I said, go with these quick screens that Indiana teams of the past, those would have worked against, because they didn't have the athletes or didn't have the scheme to counter it. But this is a good coach team, and those have never worked and really in this tenure for Curt Cignetti, them allowing a bubble screen to go 80 yards, but I didn't feel like Oregon had the right balance in the second half to ever kind of try to get on track because of what Indiana was taking away from them.
To your point about those linebackers, first of all, I think this is probably Aiden Fisher's best game of the season. 13 tackles, 4 solo, a sack and a half, tackle for loss and a half. Those 3 backers together, Elijah Hardy also had 13 tackles. Isaiah Jones had 8. Combined, 34 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for loss. And obviously Isaiah Jones kind of seals the game with that interception at the end. We talked a lot in the offseason and the preseason about this defense. And even this week, I think you made the point that in a lot of ways, the defense has been more impressive than the offense. It's been a little bit more consistent than the offense.
those comments aged well.
I think I also made the argument that it seemed like the defense was the area that was more ripe for regression from last year, just because of what they lost and the question marks that they had on this defense. I don't think it's unfair to say that front six, that front seven has proven itself now. I would say the linebackers are a bigger part of it because it was a little bit more of a question mark. Like Jalen Walker was so important for Aiden Fisher and vice versa. Don't get me wrong. But Jalen Walker and Aiden Fisher were so important to one another last year. And when you looked at the two players replacing them, you had some good moments from Elijah Hardy, largely in garbage time. You had some development from Isaiah Jones, but I don't think either of us would have said that we thought this was coming this year. You could have looked at that defensive line and said, Tyreek Tucker's back, Mikel Kamara's back. They got some interesting transfers. It's the linebacker group that I think has solidified the idea that this front seven, I saw someone who was it? I think it might have been Aaron Taylor on CBS Sports said after the game he thinks their front seven is better than Alabama's or Georgia's. And I'm not really in a position to argue with that at the moment. And I think that the holistic development of this linebacker group is the reason why, is what puts me kind of over the top on being willing to agree with that. And I think it was something else that was pointed out a lot in the CBS broadcast. Gary Danielson brought it up several times. And it was that most teams won't roll with three linebackers on the field anymore. Most teams don't trust the idea of playing three backers against spread offenses and athletes in space. And Indiana does. And those dudes keep showing up. And in a game like this, to your point, where Oregon got to a place where it just said, listen, all we have is our athleticism. Let's see if we can break the game open with that. It was the linebackers that said that's not happening today.
Okay, so a couple things. They rarely, they rarely play the 4-3 without a tight end on the field. So it is very scheme specific. But I think it's become a more dangerous package this year because of the development of Isaiah Jones.
Yeah.
I think they knew what they had in Elijah Hardy, that his athleticism maybe even surpassed Jalen Walker. He just needed to he was such a newer, he didn't have as much football under his belt because he had been primarily a basketball player, kind of even going to his sophomore year of high school, that they felt his development could skyrocket. Jones is probably the bigger surprise in the sense that they didn't really talk him up. They liked him as a player, and he lost his job last year to Hardy. And to have him come in, and when they are able to be multiple, it unlocks a lot of things for Brian Haynes because they mix up coverages, they mix up personnel, and it just adds another layer. I don't think that was the bigger question mark. I think the line is so important to what Brian Haynes has done because he wants to get pressure by brushing four, which we kind of had wrong even at the start. Going back to last year, we thought, this is going to be a guy that blitzes a lot. He mixes those in, but he needs his front four to get pressure. And man, the interior of this line might be better than it was last year with CJ West, as a group.
I think it is. It just is.
CJ West might have been an individual. He might have been an individually more dominant player than any of the four they got, but as a group, they are just firing on all cylinders. And then Kamara drawing all the attention, and I think Kellen Wyatt. A lot of people have talked about on social media just how important he's been, and he fought back from injury to get kind of back in the field today. He's been very good. And so I think it all starts with being able to rush for, and then all the stuff that Brian Haynes mix in, and that he's got the personnel to do it. It's just an impressive mix. And, who knows what the comparison is or how good do they stack up to the other teams, the other defenses and top defenses in the country. But all I know from what I saw today is, they only gave up 13 points. Obviously one was the interception. That it's a damn good group.
So I'm checking this in real time. And this is all sort of unsack adjusted, but today was Oregon's worst day offensively in terms of points. By 14, by 10. It was Oregon's worst day offensively in terms of total yards by more than 100 yards, by 106 yards. They only had 373 total yards at Northwestern. It is the first time all season Oregon has been held under 100 yards net rushing. It is by some distance.
It's only the second time since 2023 they've been held under 300 yards.
Okay,
the only other game was the national title game. So I mean,
the point is, it is the worst offensive performance by any measure. But the only one that compares is that Northwestern game, which I think for a variety of reasons, Oregon was just sort of like, I don't want to say coasting through, but kind of was. Like what Indiana did to Oregon defensively today was substantial, and it was against a. I mean, this is where I think you can zoom out a little bit. Like this was what Indiana wasn't supposed to be capable of. This was the stage that Indiana was supposed to sort of shrink from. Certainly, we saw that last year a couple times. This was the kind of opponent that was still supposed to be able to hold the whip hand on Indiana because of the athletic talent, because of the way they recruited, because of their depth, because of the atmosphere, etc. And Indiana just dominated them defensively. I do want to talk about the offense because all that can also be said about Indiana's offensive performance. This is the most passing yards.
One other thing, I just checked. It was the worst performance by the offense because I didn't get to see the stats on the field. The worst performance by Oregon's offense in Auburn in Dan Lanning's tenure.
Okay.
Significant.
It is by a lot of the most standard measures also the best offensive performance against Oregon this season. It's the most yards any team's gained against Oregon. It's, I think, the second most yards, or it is the most yards anybody's passed for against Oregon. It is the most points anyone has scored against Oregon this season. And I suspect, I don't have these numbers in front of me, but when you have 3 drives of 9 plays, 75 yards, I think it's 9 plays, 12 plays, all of 75 yards. I suspect we're going to find out that this is going to be the best EPA per play against Oregon this season, the best success rate.
They only had 1 double-digit drive. The other 2 was 9.
I said 9, 12.
Oh, okay.
Did I say 9, 12, 12? I meant 9, 9, 12.
Yeah.
They had 2 of 9 and 1 of 12, all of 75 yards. If I said dominant earlier, then that was, forgive me, it's been a long day. I know it's been longer for you, and I was probably just getting a little casual with my adjectives. But I mean, Indiana's offense won this game too. Like I understand the defense. I think you are applying an awfully heavy critique to a team.
I am just following.
That 3 times drove the length of the field.
I am just following Curt Cignetti's lead. How he talked about the
Curt Cignetti lies, as we pointed out many times this week. When he said that Oregon had a $40 million NIL budget, and then on Monday was like, I don't even know what NIL is. I've never heard of NIL.
Because I think if you counter it, they had 4 3-and-outs. I mean, it would have been a 5th because the interception came on a 3rd down. Like, they did not look great. They looked out of sorts longer than they looked like they did earlier.
I don't think they looked out of sorts. I think they looked like a team playing Oregon at Autzen Stadium. That's not out of sorts. That's just struggling with the opponent in a difficult environment.
Sure, but it's out of sorts because of the good. I'm not saying out of sorts because they were bad. I'm saying could be because.
But I think you're taking credit away from them when you should be giving it to Oregon. Is my point.
I mean, okay, yeah, no, I have no problem saying it was because Oregon has a good defense, but I just think for whatever reason they were out of rhythm. And you're saying that they did win the game on the game-winning drive. I don't think they looked as great as you're just saying. I think they struggled through this game and made the plays when they needed to, especially, I think that end of the first half field goal, I think played a big role, just getting those extra points. Those were plays that they made against Iowa too, and you've seen them when their backs against the wall the last 2 games, 3 weeks, make the plays necessary to win. And so I didn't think the overall performance was as good as you're saying, but I think the takeaway is that they can make the plays when they need to, and that's usually the hallmarks of a good team in the face of adversity, whether it's the opposing defense, which was very good, the crowd, which was very loud, and the refs, which did not give them any breaks. So I think you add that all up, and that's what you it's good. It's all friendly.
This is the only comment I'm going to add, other than John Jacobs saying 18 minutes into a 203-minute stream.
But and it's not an argument necessarily that I get what you're saying. I just viewed it differently. I think they just made the plays when they needed to, and that still speaks well of them, and is a good thing going forward because that's what you're going to need to do even against lesser competition coming up. you might need to make a play when, you face some adversity, and they've done that the last 2 games. And I think that's what Kirk Cignetti wanted to see, because I think you hadn't really seen that from this team. They were, they steamrolled teams, or they lost those 2 games.
Just think this is. I watched this game, and I watched the way Indiana closed this game, and I'm thinking in particular of the 2 second half touchdown drives. And I thought that this is how you win a playoff game. You don't win a playoff game, but like every once in a while, yeah, you win a playoff game by throwing for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. But more often, you win a playoff game by playing complementary football, by making fewer mistakes. Indiana committed one more penalty today, but had 19 fewer penalty yards. And like, I know Kurt Cignetti will go nuts with like the pre-snap stuff, but like the flip side is, which team committed the penalty that put the other team on the 2-yard line? You know what I mean? To help finish off a drive. Like, Indiana played the cleaner game. Indiana played the tougher game. And Indiana, again, like we've talked about this in some other games, and I'm not saying Indiana doesn't need to get some of this stuff cleaned up, but Oregon's 2 touchdowns were a busted coverage and a pick six that I would argue was both a bad call and a bad throw. I don't think Indiana should have been throwing on that down, and I don't think Fernando Mendoza should have made the decision he made. But the point is, Oregon's 2 touchdowns in this game were individual errors. Indiana's 3 touchdowns in this game were long, developed, converted, efficient, well-constructed drives. None of them was even a scripted drive. Wasn't even like one of them was the first drive of the game, although I don't really think Indiana scripts drives very often. Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think Indiana won this game because of its offense. I think it won it more because of its defense, but I don't think it won it in spite of its offense in any way. I think you had to assume that there were moments.
They kind of have the best of both worlds. You're saying like the defense won the game, but the offense won the game. But
they get to have the best of both worlds. They beat Oregon at Autzen Stadium.
Why can't the special teams?
Like, you have to factor in the idea that there are going to be stretches where Oregon is better than you at Autzen Stadium under this coach with this quarterback and this defense.
But you can't say the defense and offense are equal in that sense.
No, I think the defense was better than the offense, but I still think the offense was quite good, is my point. And I think special teams deserve credit too. Oregon missed the field goal.
Really selling them short. Really selling them short.
I think you're selling the offense short.
Selling special teams short.
Well, special teams didn't miss field goal. It's another week, and it's another week where Indiana's not the team making again, in all 3 phases, it's another week where Indiana's not the team making the mistakes. And
what you saw in those 2 games that they lost, with special teams were detrimental to the effort. And that was like a critical area, because they couldn't afford to really make those mistakes, and they made them in special teams like for the first time all year. And that hasn't showed up at all this season. Like, their special teams have been like near perfect. To be honest.
Well, even more. Like what was it? What John Jacobs says? Did Frankie kick super long field goals? Well, yes. First of all, he kicks long field goals. Apparently, yes, he does kick super long field goals.
He missed one earlier in the season, but he's their long kicks guy. This special.
Yes, basically, he had only attempted 2 field goals before that. By the way, in his entire career, he attempted 1 at Nebraska in 2022, and he attempted the one against ODU that he missed into the wind, 52 yards. That was 58. It tied a program record. I guess let's zoom out here first in terms of what this means to this season. Indiana now has the inside lane to a place in Indianapolis. While we talk here, I'm going to Google the score of the Michigan USC game because I haven't seen it. USC is beating Michigan 24-13 with a little under 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So if Michigan picks up a loss there, that starts to slide the Wolverines, who are kind of like the one big dark horse in the unless, well, if you want to bring Northwestern in, I don't know, go ahead. But Michigan is kind of the one little dark horse floating around the Big Ten race, but it very much feels now like it's Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State primarily. Ohio State doesn't play Indiana or Oregon. So from here on, the likelihood is Indiana can afford to go 5-1 down the stretch and reach Indianapolis. I'll ask you this question too, and I don't actually know exactly what my answer to it is, but I'd be curious for yours first. I'm not asking where you think Indiana will be ranked, but I'm asking you where you think Indiana should be ranked tomorrow.
2.
I could get behind 2. I know why people are going to argue for 1. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think Ohio State's looked really, really good. I actually, after today, would be fascinated and potentially very excited to see Indiana and Ohio State play in a Big Ten championship game, because I do think that it is very difficult to look at what Indiana's done so far this season, what Ohio State's done so far this season, and not feel like those are the two best teams in the Big Ten at this point.
I mean, because I don't know what the knock on Ohio State would be. Like, everybody thought Texas was great. I mean, I know retroactively it doesn't look as good of a win, but they win that game. They go to Washington, and Washington's looked very, very good this season, and that's a West Coast trip. They don't. Did they not allow a touchdown? Was that just 2 field goals? So I mean, a great win.
I mean, they beat Illinois today. I mean, they didn't beat Illinois by quite the score that Indiana did, but Indiana also played Illinois at home. I mean, the one argument for Indiana is just that Indiana's got the better win. That's the argument for Indiana.
But I mean, and Ohio State's the defending champions too, and so
sure. Let's phrase this another way then. Do you think Indiana gets any first place votes tomorrow?
Yeah, well, yes, but I mean, I don't know what that. Yes, I mean, because
that's more the barometer for me, is like this, because like Oregon was getting some, Miami pulled some away, I think, this week. I think Indiana's going to be in that conversation. We can't escape talking about just the wider meaning of this. I don't know how much that got brought up. I know Curt Cignetti doesn't love talking about that stuff.
It got brought up multiple times, and the answer was the same. And Scott Dolson even talked about it and chatted with him, and missed a few reporters on the field as the game was winding down. Just that the idea is like, yeah, you win this one, but like, what does it mean if you lose 2 more? You lose 2, right? Or you don't capitalize it. And so I think it will be a program defining moment if they go 11-1, 12-0, and make the Big Ten title game and host a playoff game, or even, could get a bye, but I mean, at least host a playoff game. Like if you have those, if that's the trajectory you're on, this becomes that. If for some reason, I'm not saying it's feasible or likely, you did lose a couple of games or take a step back, this becomes a huge moment, but not like a program. You know what I'm saying? I just think that you need to, because we see it all the time, and Kirk any jokes is like the Iowa game was a trap game. That's how he did it. Trap game. So like,
I think he invented that phrase. It was like when my son declared his soccer team was the GOATs, and I asked him where he learned it. He said, "I made that up."
But the idea, those exist, and if you stumble somewhere down the line, and this loses luster a little bit, but I don't see that happening, obviously, because I mean, when you saw what the product on the field is the last 3 games, you really think this team's destined for great things. But I think for it to be what I think you're hinting at, that this is like seismic, that they have to get there, right?
Yeah. No, I think what I do think, and this is a more abstract concept than something that would be defined by just what happens this season, because I think that, and I wrote about this in my Postgame Insider, I think there has been this natural conflict throughout the last 18 months between like what Curt Cignetti's Indiana is and what Indiana's history is, and whether there ever comes a moment when like one can properly sort of subsume the other, essentially. And what struck me about this game and generally just the kind of the course of the season is that I think we are actually at a point, and this is why I think this is the most important game, most important win in program history to this point, is that like it's never been easier to divorce yourself from your history. Like there is no history in college football anymore. We've completely upended the most fundamental structures of the sport, of how you hire a coach, how you build a roster, who has access to a national championship, how you win that national championship. Like everything about college football, even 10 years ago, is completely different to what it is now. And so, there has been understandably a lot of sort of like, oh, did Indiana find the football formula at the perfect time because, this way they don't get left behind or whatever. Maybe. I mean, we'll find out where college sports goes in the coming generation. But what I do think is that Indiana proved that it's never been easier in the history of this sport to break whatever tether holds you to your past and to just be what you are in the moment, like completely unbothered by whatever has happened before. And, there is no more old Indiana. That like there is just like, I think a win like this tells you there is just this Indiana.
Well, to your point, I think the next question, like the questions this team will face, are less about going forward after this season, are less about, oh, can you turn the page on your horrible, horrible past? It'll be, can you win without JMU's players? Can you win without, if Kurt Cignetti stays here for a while, then retires down the line? Like, can you win without Kurt Cignetti? Like, those are the questions, and it's less about, like you said, the past, and you're being tied to the poor performance over decades, and more just about like what's next, what's on the horizon, and those are the questions. And then Cignetti will find the right buttons to push here going forward, and he's always looking at those things. And I mean they've reshaped the argument, like you said, and now like somebody asked him about their credibility, and it's like this team has, like, there's nothing left to prove. Like,
No.
And that, like, I don't know.
In a way, it was almost better that this win came on the road. Like, I still argue like there hasn't been that defining moment at home. Like, even Illinois, it was like everyone kind of stopped watching because it was like the boxer who wouldn't bow out of the fight, But
do you think they should have quit? Illinois should have just walked off the field.
Yes, basically. But for this to come on the road, just like sort of it answers any remaining criticism. To say you can go into Autzen and beat that Oregon team and that Oregon coach, in that environment, like like you said, there is nothing left to prove. There's no question left to answer. Like somebody else has to be the punching bag from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, unless they stumble, like, I mean, but like that's just doesn't seem like it's a feasible thing.
There's been no evidence. Yeah, it's always possible. It is always possible. Obviously, there's been no evidence to suggest that Kurt Cignetti teams do that very often, and that's
barring an injury like that. That would be the only thing right. You see that trips.
And that's going back years. Like, go back and look at his JMU teams when they lost. He
hasn't had a losing season, so I mean,
when they lost, they consistently lost to teams that were better than them. You know what I mean? Like, we'll leave it there. You got a lot more to do. I got more to do. But he's Mike Niziolek from the press box at Autzen Stadium. Mike, thanks for finding a quiet spot to join us. I think this is our most robust stream of the year. People are excited.
We got, like, it's already late. Any other questions from people? I mean, we have
no, don't do that because they think we're going to go for 203 minutes and we've only been going for 32.
We can go 3 more minutes. We can get to 35.
No. See, and now they're mad. Now you've made everyone angry.
Well, if they have a question or comment, we could.
Well, John has a question. He said, "Is that it?" And I think you've answered it with your. Someone asked, "Is Baldwin in redshirt territory?" Yes,
I would think so.
I can't remember though with the 4-game rule. Can you use
the postseason doesn't count anymore? I don't believe.
No, but does it matter if those games come in the second half of the season? I don't remember.
Football, no.
So in theory, like, I mean, he's in redshirt territory, but in theory,
I would think he'd play 4 games if he's healthy enough, and the postseason if he's available. But then redshirt, like, they're not going to play him more than 4 games. There's only regular season.
Right, exactly. Like, he could still play again this season.
He could almost play like 6 of the 8 games, or 6, 4 of the 6 in the regular season, and then the postseason. So I mean, that's a good spot to be. So they don't have to rush him back. But yeah, I mean, it would be crazy for him not to redshirt at this point, just based on where we are at the season.
Someone asked if we're going to take our shirts off. The answer to that is no. Someone else asked if I'm your boss. The answer to that is yes.
Is Mike Zach's boss?
No, it says, is Zach Mike's boss? There we go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the answer is yes.
But then the follow-up was, is Mike Zach's boss? We are equals.
A lot of asking about the Penn State game. Honestly, what I would tell people at this point is just worry about the next game, because your team has put you in that position. Like, you don't have, think about last year. Everything was so colored by that Ohio State game for weeks leading up to it. I mean, or maybe the Michigan game first, but the point was once Indiana got past Nebraska, it was just like, okay, this season is completely defined by Michigan and Ohio State because Indiana's got to go prove it. Indiana doesn't have to do that anymore. Just worry about the next game. That's literally all you need.
Just worry about UCLA. UCLA. Just worry about UCLA.
Can they still win the league?
They may be.
I mean, I think they have the one conference loss to Northwestern.
They could go 8-4 and undefeated in the conference. Is that right?
Well, they have the one conference loss to Northwestern.
One conference loss, so they could.
So I'll go crunch some. I'll go crunch
What are
some
USC
numbers.
chances?
I'll float some percentages and get back to you on what the likelihood is of the Bruins in Indianapolis.
But the Penn State thing could get really ugly because they have to go to Iowa and Ohio State before.
Well, and I assume you saw Drew Aller's out for the season.
Yes.
Now,
and so
but my point is more broadly just.
No, I get what your point is, but
you don't need to worry about, like, Penn State doesn't prove anything now. You've proven it. Like, just literally, if you're Indiana, your job is just win the next game, and if you do that 6 more times, you will be in Indianapolis.
If you do that 5 more times, you might be in Indianapolis.
And if you do that like 8 more times, you'll be a national champion. Which,
wow.
Listen, I think Indiana is allowed to dream that dream tonight. I'm not predicting it's going to happen, but
I'd be curious to see what the prediction, like the percentage of them making the playoffs is now, and what their win total. Because wasn't their win total like 10 wins or 11 wins was like the most?
It was like 10.6. So it was like right on the cut line between 10 and 11.
I don't think undefeated is like higher than 50%, which is a wild place to be.
Yeah, that's what you earn when you win a game like this. He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. I'm sorry we're going to come up about 98 minutes short, 97 minutes short of 203. But I promise you we'll be back next week to talk a lot more about what at minimum should be a top 5 football team when the polls break on Sunday afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us. I know this has been a late one. 5 more minutes, Dad. Sorry, HFW3. And I'm not going to ask what that acronym stands for, because at this time of night, I'm not sure I want to know. He's Mike Niziolek. I'm Zach Osterman. Thank you so much for listening. This has been Mind Your Banners postgame from Indiana 30, Oregon 20. Hoosiers are 6-0. And by the way, bowl eligible for a second straight season.
That would be like the main story being written most years for this team. And now it was like,
it was last year, but not anymore.
Not
it's
anymore.
a new day. Talk to you soon.